Today I will be showing you how to dye a gi. I'm going to be using my white Phenom gi that I've washed. I'm still damp and I've taken the patches off. And I will be using this liquid fabric dye. With 1 cup of salt, I'll be putting into my water. I'll be using probably 2 pans of this water and put it in my 5-gallon bucket. So you put your salt in the water, let it dissolve. Once you've let the water dissolve, you'll transfer the water to a container that is large enough to fit your gi. Alright, because I'm doing this in my kitchen, I've decided to put down a drop cloth so that if I get it on my tile floor, it's not going to stain. I'm also using latex gloves so that it doesn't absorb into my hands. So I've got my water. I put the water in the bucket. I'm going to go ahead and take my dye and pour it in. I'm going to use the whole can and stir the dye up so that it dissolves and mixes with the water and the salt. This is what the dye is going to look like without anything in it. Alright, so I've done that. I'm going to go ahead and set those right there. I'm going to go ahead and do my pants first. Put my gloves on. And they are still damp from being washed. And I'm just going to immerse them into the dye, making sure that it covers completely. And I'm going to sit here and I'm going to mix it around and get all of the wrinkles and all of the, make sure the dye gets into all of the pieces. Alright, since I'm going to go ahead and dye my top, I'm going to still use the dye that I have in this bucket. Once I have the desired color that I want, by immersing it all into the dye, I'm going to transfer this over to an empty bucket that I have. And take it over to a sink and rinse it out until it becomes clear. That way I know I have all of the dye out that's excess. And then I'm going to stick it in the washing machine to wash. Now it's the top's turn. I've got my gi top. I'm going to go ahead and do the same process that I did with the pants. I'm going to stick it into the dye and make sure that it's all covered. Making sure I'm getting all the creases and that it gets all completely soaked. Moving it around and letting it absorb the dye. Alright, so once I've taken the gi, both the top and the bottom, out of my dye solution, and I've rinsed it to be clear, the runoff of the water to be clear, I'm going to go ahead and stick it in by itself into the washing machine. And I'm going to run it through the washing machine at least twice to get all the excess dye out. Now I've completed the dye bath process and I've washed my gi. I think it turned out pretty good. I have it hanging up. As you can see, the dye does not adhere to the stitching of the gi, which is an okay thing. Kind of gives it a nice contrast. Makes the colors of the dye pop. Kind of gives it a nice touch. Now, one issue that I did come across was that I did 2 products in one dye bath, my gi pants and my gi top. I believe that the dye bath actually cooled off just a touch for my second item, my gi top, but the colors are not quite the same shade of pink, if you can see that in the video. Now, what I'm going to try to do to correct that issue is I'm going to repeat the dye bath process for my top to see if I can't darken it up just a touch. Now, if you're doing just one product, I don't believe that will be an issue, but it's just something to keep in mind when you're doing 2 items in the same dye bath and you want them to be the same color. You might have to repeat the dye bath process for the second item. Alright, so we have a final product here. This is what it looks like, all finished, washed, dried, and ready to wear. Turned out pretty good. Colors are nice, colors are even, colors match. Looks pretty good. Alright, this was kind of a trial and error for me because this is the first time I've actually done a gi, dyed a gi. I went ahead and used 3 total bottles of dye. 3 bottles of this red liquid dye fuchsia color. You can find these anywhere at a craft store, Hobby Lobby, Michael's, fabric store. Those can be found just about anywhere. Now, I used 3 total bottles. One was for the initial bath, dye bath that I did for both products. And I decided it wasn't quite right. Colors weren't quite even. Colors weren't quite matching for the top and the bottom. So I did another dye bath separately for the pants and another dye bath separately for the top. So 3 dye baths all together to kind of get it a nice vibrant uniform color for both items. Now, my first trial of dyeing a product was actually my gi bag. And I used the same dye product. I did use one of these bottles for my gi bag. That turned out pretty well, and that kind of gave me the idea that I would try a gi. And both actually turned out really well. So I hope this helps you in your project, and I hope this kind of helps give you some tips on how to kind of do your own gi. It was a fun project. I may try another one sometime down the line. Anyways, hope this helps. Have a good day.